Have you ever wondered what a movie smells like? Or what it would feel like to experience the teeth-rattling shakes of Godzilla tearing through Tokyo? Today we're going to talk about that and more as we explore the strangest movie formats and viewing experiences in film history. This video is brought to you thanks to Uppbeat. More from them later. We normally experience a movie with two of our senses: sight with our eyes and sound with our ears. But what if we added a third sense into the mix to heighten the immersion? What if we added the ability to smell the film? In 1868, yes, even before the first ever film was created by Louis the Prince in 1888, the Alhambra Theatre of Variety in London did something new that would inspire countless iterations over the next 150 years. They sprayed a perfume from Rimmel in their theatre during the magic dance of the fairy acorn tree. Even before film existed, venues were pairing scents with performances to heighten the experience of the audience. And it's only natural that people would try the same thing with films, since they're experienced in a similar theater venue. And what's really interesting is that scents were added to films even before sound was. Now, as is common with these firsts, the exact timeline is a little blurry, with different sources citing different years. But sometime between 1908 and 1916, at the Family Theater in Forest City, Pennsylvania, Samuel Roxy Rothafel placed wads of cotton that had been soaked in rose oil in front of a fan in the theater as a newsreel of the Rose Bowl game was playing. But the Rose Bowl game didn't actually happen between 1908 and 1915, so it may have actually just been a newsreel of the Rose Parade. The exact newsreel is unknown, but nevertheless, the scent was introduced to the theater. In 1916, the Rivoli Theater in New York was equipped with the ability to pump scents into the theater for the short film Story of the Flowers. And in 1929, the manager at the Fenway Theater in Boston placed lilac perfume in the ventilation system for screenings of the 1928 film Lilac Time. Over the years, more and more people would attempt adding smells to theaters to pair with what's happening on the screens. And one of the most notable was smellovision, created by Hans Laub, but this wasn't even actually his first attempt with this. His connection to this experimental film technique actually dates back to the 1939 World's Fair held in New York City with the technique that he dubbed scentovision. But before we get into the details of these two, I think there's a bigger question to answer here. Why? Why add smells to the theater? And what is it about the sense of smell that caused so many different people over so many different years to attempt the same thing? And to answer that, I think we need to look at our connection to our sense of smell. I think everyone has a memory tied directly with a certain smell. Maybe it's a certain laundry detergent that your parents used as you grew up, or maybe it's the smell of fresh cut grass that reminds you of the acres and acres and acres of lawn that you had to mow as a kid. Regardless of what it is, our sense of smell is undoubtedly connected to our memories. And with those memories comes emotions. Good, bad, it doesn't really matter. Our sense of smell can conjure these powerful emotional responses, and those exact emotional responses are exactly what filmmakers are looking for. And we can look to science for a little bit of help as far as explaining why this happens. The quick answer is that olfactory signals from our nose are sent to our brain traveling along the olfactory tract. And this tract visits a bunch of different parts of the brain, like the amygdala and the hippocampus. And these two regions are directly tied to our emotions and our memories, giving certain scents the ability to trigger strong emotional responses or cause us to recall certain memories. If we look at all the early attempts of adding smells to the theater experience, we can see that they were pretty much all done by theater owners, not the directors or production companies. And that's likely because smells could just as easily distract from the films as they could enhance them. They needed more actual control over what scents appeared and at what times. And when you just dump a ton of perfume in front of a fan, it's hard to really have any level of control. But that all changed in 1939 at the World's Fair with Laub's introduction of scentovision. This system had pipes connected to each seat in the theater, so the timing and the amount of each smell could be carefully controlled by the projectionist. At the World's Fair, Laub met Todd A.O. and Cinerama creators Michael Todd Sr. and Jr., who showed a real interest in Laub's new invention. But Ultimately, no studios or directors were interested enough to actually create a film and outfit a theater with Lob's smellovision. So, in 1946, he returned back to Switzerland with smellovision essentially a failure. It wasn't until 15 years later, when Todd Sr. and Jr. were thinking of a way they could make their film Around the World in 80 Days more interesting, that they thought of Lob in his creation. They didn't end up actually working with him on that film, but Mike Todd Jr. brought Lob into the production of The Scent of Mystery for the first feature attempted with the newly renamed Smellovision. But once again, they weren't the only people actually working on this concept. It's likely that word got out that Todd Jr. was working on a film to be paired with Lob's scent technology, and in 1958, it was announced that a new film was being produced. And this was with Charles H. Weiss, a PR executive, and Walter Reed Jr., who owned and operated a bunch of theaters in New York. The pair released Aroma-Rama, along with the film Behind the Great Wall, in December of 1959. That's just 1 month before The Scent of Mystery aired in January of 1960. Aroma-Rama was different from Smellovision as it released scents through the theater's AC system, not unlike these other early attempts at the concept that was done for films like Lilac Time. But the whole idea of Aroma-Rama, the name, the timing, it all seemed to be a jab at Mike Todd Jr. and his late father. Aroma-Rama played off of the Cinerama name, another extremely unique format that we've actually talked about a few times. The film is also said to have been rushed to be completed before 1960, before Smellovision. Two little jabs at the experimentation done by the Todd duo. Though Weiss still believed in the power of the concept and was actually quoted saying, "Smells are surer than sounds or sights to make the heartstrings crack." Regardless of the beef, neither system was actually a hit. Smellovision was plagued with technical issues, with hissing sounds coming from the delivery pipes and poor timing with the scents actually reaching some areas after the action had already happened on screen. A Time reader survey in 2000 actually had Smellovision in the top 100 worst ideas of all time. And Aroma-Rama fared no better. Famed New York Times film critic Bosley Crowther called it a stunt with no artistic benefit. The scents were described as being synthetic and more often than not causing more confusion than clarity and immersion.
Nobody see it, nobody don't even happen, you know.
As time continued, there were a few more attempts at integrating smells into screenings with scratch and sniff cards, with films like Spy Kids, All the Time in the World, and Rugrats Go Wild. But these were more of promotional gimmicks than anything else. A24 actually even got in on the promotional aspect of this by releasing blueberry pie scented candles at certain promotional showings of Heretic. However, we do actually see the concept being genuinely used in the 4D movie experiences. There are a few companies producing 4D film experiences, with 4DX and MX4D at the forefront. 4DX is a 4D film presentation system developed by CJ 4Dplex under CJ CGV, South Korea's largest cinema chain. 4DX allows for films to be augmented with more practical effects than just scent. And in 2009, Avatar became the first film shown in 4DX in select theaters in South Korea. And the company saw good success, and in 2014, they signed a contract with AEG and Regal Cinemas to bring 4DX to the US, starting with the LA Live complex in downtown Los Angeles. As of 2020, there are more than 32 4DX locations within the US and more than 790 4DX theaters worldwide across more than 70 different countries and partnering with over 80 theater chains. 4DX takes the concept of Smellovision and adds in an additional 20 effects to change the novelty into a 4D experience that turns it more into an amusement ride. You can think of it like some of the newer roller coaster rides at places like Disney World or Universal. The 21 different effects are listed on screen right now, but some notable and strange ones that you can see are the tickler and the rainstorm and snow effects that essentially add in the atmosphere and weather of the film, extending the film's environment off the screen into the theater. The ability to have seats that also move and shake along with the film is another key part of this format. Jump scares can be heightened with actual movement, car chases are more exciting, and explosions have way more impact. MX4D is another company that competes with 4DX, providing many of the same seat and theater effects with rumblers, water sprays, fog, snow, leg and neck ticklers, scents, bubbles, and more. Their systems were developed by the American company Mediamation. However, they're just a lot smaller than 4DX, with only about 14 theaters in the US. 4D film experiences have managed to find a foothold in the industry where smellovision couldn't. Yes, the technology is better, but our expectations are also higher. I think the reason for their success is because they aren't trying to just enhance the regular theater experience, but instead are pointed more in the direction of an amusement park ride. They're just two completely different categories. You can see this in the actual films that are selected for 4D. As of this moment, the live-action How to Train Your Dragon, the live-action Lilo and Stitch, and the new Mission Impossible movies are playing in 4D. So that's 2 children's movies and a blockbuster action film. All 3 benefit from being made into more of a spectacle than a serious drama would. A film like Perfect Days, which I actually just talked about in my last video, would be really out of place in 4D. Basically, Smellovision walked so 4DX could run. But for the final film format, we're actually going to leave the ground altogether and take to the skies. But not before we talk about Uppbeat. Are you a creator feeling like your videos blend in? Well, it's time to make them fly above the pack with Uppbeat. Elevate your content with high-quality music, sound effects, motion graphics, and more, all in one subscription. And to bump it from economy to first class, Uppbeat has a massive library of LUTs to help you achieve stunning color grades that make your videos truly unforgettable. Ready for your content to really take off? Propel it to new heights with Uppbeat. Click the link in the description right now and get 20% off the Creator or Pro plans. Many of us might take in-flight entertainment for granted nowadays, but that wasn't always the case, especially in the era of film projection. Since the first passenger flight in 1914, airline companies have been working to bring the luxuries of everyday life to that big metal tube in the sky. And in-flight entertainment was no exception. To compete with Trans World Airlines, or TWA, American Airlines hired Bell & Howell to create an in-flight entertainment system that could compete with the large single screen used by TWA. Hello, Editor John here. I just wanted to jump in really quick because I realized while editing this that I never actually told you the name of the in-flight entertainment system. And it is called Astrocolor and was designed somewhere in the late 60s from what I can tell from advertisements and other sources. If you know the exact day, let me know down in the comments below, but I just wanted to make sure you actually knew what this was called. I don't know how I missed that in the writing and research. All right, back to the regular video. And Bell & Howell definitely delivered. They came back with a radical new idea, having multiple small, fold-down, individually projected screens spaced out among the cabin every 5 rows. Now you might think that it would be crazy to design an in-flight entertainment system that needs that many copies of a film, and that it would be a real pain to have to start all of those individual projections. And you'd be right. But what they actually did is something even crazier. Instead of projecting multiple copies of a film, they used a single copy that they ran the length of the cabin through each projector. Bell & Howell designed this system to sit above the overhead luggage, where the film strip could reach over 9,000 feet in length.
It's over 9,000!
And due to its design, this meant that the passengers on the far side from the projection start would see the film around 5 minutes after those who were closer to the start. So you really had to be careful not to look too far ahead, or you might just have the whole film spoiled for you. To make this a little bit more manageable, they used 16mm film rather than 35. But the complex design still meant that there were a lot of potential breakpoints that could cause problems. And problems definitely happened.
Houston, we have a problem.
The failure rate for this was around 20%. And when you're paying for a luxury flight, 20% is just not acceptable. Especially if you go in thinking that you're going to have this amazing new in-flight film on your journey. But worse yet, failures in the projections cause delayed flights, and that is one of the biggest no-nos for an airline. and eventually was its downfall. But it wasn't all bad. This first idea of having a smaller, more personalized projection system eventually led to the in-flight entertainment system that we know today. Bell and Howell, along with American Airlines, planted this seed for an incredible number of innovations and iterations of in-flight entertainment. Whether it's assaulting your nostrils or delaying your flight, the film industry has created some incredible but also pretty strange experiences for moviegoers throughout its relatively short history. But these aren't the only crazy formats that have popped up. So if you know of a different one, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.